thank you all for being here this morning and for taking time out of this beautiful summer day. There are always so many options on a beautiful summer day, and you've chosen to be here, so thank you. And let us all hold Reverend Lesia in our hearts and thoughts and prayers as she is recovering and resting. We know that she is healing beautifully. Reflecting back over the many years that I've been following the teachings of Science of Mind and trying to practice them in my own life, I realize what a huge difference they have made in how I approach everyday living. And my talk title today is actually Practical Spirituality, because it always seems to me that being spiritual is something some people think is like trying to live like a mystic on a mountaintop. But I think being spiritual is finding a path forward in your everyday life that works for you. In earlier years, I was a great worrier. I felt that I was pretty much at liberty of whatever circumstances showed up in my life. I believed in God, or a greater power, but I don't think I gave much thought to how I related to that God, or how that God related to me. In fact, I probably didn't give much thought to God at all. When I began to read and study New Thought, and my pathway was through Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes, there were several key points that slowly shifted my entire view of who I was, and to the degree that I could grasp it, what this entity, God or spirit or universal consciousness, or whatever you choose to call it, was expressing in my own life. And there were some key elements that Ernest Holmes provided in a book called How to Change Your Life that really resonated with me, and I thought I'd share those key elements this morning. The first was the ability to attain your goals, to control your experiences and have them result in happiness, prosperity, and success. All that lies in your own mind and the way you use it. Your thought is in control of your experience, and you can direct your thought. This means that you control your own experience. The first time I heard that, it was pretty revolutionary. I had no thought that I could control my own experience up to that moment. I'm going to have a bit of water. It's not a very efficient water bottle, but it does the job. God or spirit, universal mind, is expressing in, as, and through you in all that is in the vastness of the universe. There are no exceptions to this law. The unlimited creativity of universal mind acts through your thoughts, your faith, and your conviction. Therefore, you can create the experiences you choose, whether they be experiences of health, happiness, prosperity, employment, any good thing you desire, through the process of your own constructive thought. As we are creations of God or universal mind, we have godlike qualities, and we have the right to develop and use them. In fact, if we are to have lives that are fulfilled and joyful, it is necessary for us to fully express through our creative minds. Maybe you knit beautiful sweaters or build birdhouses, write poetry, create a garden, tune a car engine, help out a neighbor, hike up mountains. You are always creatively expressing the essence of yourself in everything that you do. Your thoughts are under your personal control. As your thought is acted upon by the creativity of universal mind to produce results according to your belief, then you certainly do have the power or the agency over your own affairs and to bring to pass those good conditions you desire into your life. Wow. When I first heard all of that, I was gobsmacked, blown away, and I don't think I really believed it. It took a long time for me to begin to actually practice what's encapsulated in those 8 points. For those of you who've heard me speak before, you know I always make sure there is a joke in my talks. First of all, there's a tendency to drift off mentally when too much serious information is coming at you all at once. Everyone wakes up for the joke. David's awake now. And most important, laughter is essential in our lives for our well-being, and people have actually healed themselves just through laughter. So here's today's joke. A young man named Philip was an exceptional golfer. At the age of 26, he decided to become a priest and joined a rather peculiar order. He took the usual vows of poverty and chastity, but this order also insisted that he quit golf and never play again. This was particularly difficult for Philip, but he agreed and was ordained as a priest. One beautiful Sunday morning, Reverend Philip woke up and decided he just had to play golf. It must have been a day like today. So he told the assistant pastor that he was feeling sick and asked him to take the service that day. Philip headed out of town to a golf course about 40 miles away. This way he knew he wouldn't accidentally meet someone from his parish. Setting up his first tee, he was alone. After all, it was very early Sunday morning, and everyone else was still in bed or in church. At about this time, St. Peter leaned over to God while looking down from the heavens and exclaimed, "You're not going to let him get away with that, are you?" God sighed and said, "No, I guess not." Just then, Reverend Philip hit the ball, and it shot straight towards the pin, dropping just short of it, rolled up and fell into the hole. It was a 420-yard hole-in-one. St. Peter was astonished. He looked at God and asked, "Why did you let him do that?" God smiled and replied, "Who is he going to tell?" So back to the serious stuff. Now, all of this bare bones outline of some new thought principles that I'm giving you this morning may be old hat to most of you, and yet I'm always conscious that everyone who shows up here is not necessarily a student of our life-saving philosophy. Everyone came here for the first time once upon a time, and something clicked. Maybe this is that day for someone here today. So to continue with the basics, you not only have the God-given ability to control your thinking, but you also have the right to do this. This one concept is so impressive and radical when you first encounter it that it alone can transform your life. I want to share the story of a person who followed her dream and in spite of many obstacles became the person she envisioned herself to be. Stephanie Geminata was born in 1986. She was bullied through school and called the germ. Labeled as weird and an outsider, she struggled to make it through school. What kept her going was her love of music, both singing and playing the piano. She sang at open mic nights and throughout high school and auditioned for many events with numerous rejections. Later, she was sexually abused and suffered from PTSD. Despite all these setbacks, she continued to believe in her passion and purpose for being here. Today, she is known as Lady Gaga. She is recognized for her many philanthropic causes, including those of the LGBTQ community and other marginalized groups. She has been an advocate for mental health issues, women's causes, and civil rights in general. Lady Gaga is an excellent example of someone who has found her inner power and passionately lives her purpose out loud. In our teaching, we recommend that everyone find a quiet time each day, preferably morning and evening, in which to take the time to communicate with your real self, that spiritual essence that is the real you. In your quiet time, if you pray and meditate, do not ask for things or conditions, but name them and accept them as already belonging to you. After 20 minutes in this quiet state, envisioning, you will feel relaxed and full of energy. Many of you may have experienced manifesting certain events or relationships or physical things in your life. I'm going to share a few of my experiences with manifestation. This isn't a very spiritual manifestation, but it's great fun. Long before I knew a thing about New Thought, I was attending a seminar and looked out the window of my hotel room and saw the most beautiful red Fiero sports car. It was love at first sight. I said to myself, I am going to own that car. Let me explain. I was about 40 at the time and recovering from a very unhappy divorce. That car was going to be my cure. Well, be darned if my old car didn't need to be replaced, and there on the lot was a used red Fiero with black and gray racing stripes. It was mine. I drove it for several years until the transmission fell out on Wellington Street in Ottawa in front of the U.S. Embassy and nearly caused an international incident. But I loved that car right to the end. So another story of manifestation. When I was doing practitioner studies with Reverend Kim Farrell, who some of you will remember and know, I envisioned meeting a man who I saw sitting in my father's old chair, someone like my father, and a few weeks later, I met someone I had known in high school. We dated, lived together, and married a few years later. I always said I manifested Rick into my life. And there's much more to this story. 18 months after Rick and I were married, he died suddenly of an aneurysm. We had created a beautiful garden at our home, but his children were to inherit the house, and I moved back to my old house, leaving my beautiful garden behind. Several years later, I was in a relation with a friend of Rick's, dear David, who is here today. We decided to live together and looked for a house. We put in an offer on a house, and it was accepted. That same evening, I received a call from the realtor who had sold the house with the beautiful garden. He said, "You know your old house is on the market. Are you interested?" We went to see it, and David and I agreed that although it had not been very well cared for by the interim owners, it met all our requirements. This was during COVID when prices were soaring. To our astonishment, it was in such bad shape there were no competing offers. In December, I was out in the garden with my friend Jane, ripping up the landscape cloth that the sellers had put down, covered with bark mulch to hide the fact the place was just a mass of weeds. They had never pulled a weed in 5 years. So we ripped up the landscape cloth, and when spring came, all my beautiful bulbs came bursting into bloom. It was like a welcome home for David and me. And many of you have seen the garden, which is truly beautiful again today. I'm sharing these stories because I want people to know that when you immerse yourself in this teaching and really try to use it in your life, seemingly miraculous circumstances can become commonplace. I'll share the story of Reverend Kim, as I mentioned earlier, one of my teachers. When her elderly aunt died, she began to take a friend of her aunt's, a man who was a neighbor of the aunt in the care home. She began to take him out for weekly drives to shop and visit the mall and have lunch out. This man was diabetic, wheelchair-bound, and both his legs had been amputated. Kim didn't know him well, but knew that her aunt had been pretty much his only friend. Now, about a year after they'd been doing these weekly trips, they were at Tillicum Mall in Victoria, where there was a display of real estate listings. They were enjoying looking at them all and commenting on them when this man said to Reverend Kim, "Would you like to own a condo?" At the time, Kim was living in a small apartment in James Bay that she was renting. Kim said, "I would love to." "Find one you like and I will buy it," he said. She had no idea this man had any money at all. She had never. It was a complete astonishment for her. Kim moved into a lovely 2-bedroom condo with a fireplace. A year later, her car broke down. Her friend said, "Well, you can't take me out every week if you don't have a car." So he bought her a brand new car. He also explained that he had a daughter who never wrote or called or visited, and he wanted to make sure that his money went to someone who was doing good in the world. Well, Reverend Kim was certainly qualified. We speak about the law of attraction, the power of intention, but truly, if you trust that divine right action is always at work in your life, even when, and particularly when, it looks like that is not the case, just trust that spirit, universal consciousness, divine mind, one power, whatever name you choose to give it, is always at work bringing forth good in your life. Pray, trust, and know. This is particularly true in matters of health. To a large degree, your bodily condition is governed by your thought processes. This concept is now fully supported within the medical profession. You may seek prayer treatment for whatever condition you wish to have removed from your experience. And you can always help yourself by affirming with strong conviction, morning and evening, "I am strong and free through the action of God in me. I am well and successful in everything I do. You truly are the architect of your life, your experiences, your well-being, and your relationships. Think about how you happen to be here today. Many decisions in your life led you to choose to be here this morning." We are always at the point of choice. Knowing this, it helps to trust that that divine power of spirit that lives within you and is expressing as you is always leading you to make right choices and support you in every aspect of your life. And I want to close with this lovely affirmation from Ernest Holmes. "I know that in the consciousness of the divine nature is the supply for my every need, physical, mental, or spiritual, and I accept that supply in deepest gratitude. I am thankful that this is the way life fulfills my needs through the doorway of my inner self, and I am thankful that I know how to use this perfect law. I come to this great fountain of supply in the very center of my being to absorb that for which I have need mentally and physically, and I am filled with the sense of the reality of that which I desire. I permit this awareness to flow into my world of thought and action, knowing that it brings peace, harmony, and order all around me. There arises within me renewed faith in the limitless resources of the divine presence, the perfect law, and there is now right action in all my ways. And so it is. Namaste.